This is Xander and this is Before the Journey, My Early Childhood, Part 13. Before I continue, may I remind you to please watch parts 1 through 12 before watching this. If you start now, you will be lost and you won't know much of the story. So, very important you do and watch the prior parts before you watch this. So, let me go ahead and give you a recap of part 12, where we last left off. Part 12, we basically concluded 1996. I went an all-out, full-out conclusion of the year of 96. And when we did that, I also talked a little bit about, in the end of 96, what I dressed up for Halloween, which was, as you know, Wolverine. What Thanksgiving was like, the fun during Christmas time, and of course, learning how to ride a bike. I went on full detail on that and what my mother did to help me learn. So now that we got all this out of the way, let's begin in the year of 1997 as we travel through the first half of the year. And I would believe we just got done with talking about New Year's and how that was. So now let's talk about the beginning of 97 and what went down with the family. Also keep in mind, I may mention some things that relate to my faith, that relates to my faith. So please keep in mind that, I'm going to be saying things I believe in. So I'm not pushing my beliefs on you. Okay? Something to keep in your mind. So in the beginning of 97, I remember it clear as day. Crazy to even think about how that year started. I remember maybe during the time after school started up again that my stepdad and my mom, I need to get my wording correctly. Excuse me for my errors. Decided they were going to show my brother and I a movie on pay-per-view. So let me explain something about what pay-per-view was. Back in the day, in the 90s and the early 2000s, pay-per-view was how you rented movies digitally. You want a movie that's new and fresh and you don't want to go to Blockbuster. You go to pay-per-view. You have a channel, but you can only get it from premium cable. You got many different channels. And what happens is that you call up the company, you pay for, either you call up the company or something like that, and you pay through your debit card to watch a movie through rental. And once it's paid for, actually no, you don't use your debit card. You just basically get it and then you have to pay for it in your next cable bill. I stand corrected. You get the movie, but it goes to your cable bill. May I remind you, pay-per-view was a time where kids actually did do that, and it ran up their parents' cable bill. Yeah. Not something you wanted to do in the 90s and early 2000s unless your happy butt was going to pay for it. So, yeah. That is pay-per-view for you. Sorry for the misinformation. I was still backtracking my memory on the pay-per-view channels. So, my stepdad decided to rent a movie. It was just my brother, myself, my mom, and him staying at the house. And he treated us to the first Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy. That movie's hilarious. Lo and behold, I would never come to realize that I would do a great Mrs. Clump later down the line in my impression assortment until I got a little older. So, that's pretty cool to know. Yeah, we watched Nutty Professor, and I'll tell you this, 97 was a year we were going on pay-per-view quite a bit. My mother and my stepdad went on pay-per-view a lot. I mean, we didn't know how to do pay-per-view or rent movies. They were the only ones who knew how to do it. So, we left it to them. Too young for renting movies anyway, so what's the use in going further in that? So yeah, that was a fun time. An enjoyable movie. But it wouldn't be our last watching it with them. I do recall when the school year started back up. The second semester started. My mother and my stepdad asked me to watch my brother while they go out and do something. So I watch him, but may I remind you, leaving a 10-year-old to watch your young son, not a good idea. And I was in for a rude awakening. Yeah, very rude. So, they go out for a little bit. I'm stuck with my brother. Looking at the clock, my brother's like, I think it's time for me to go. Not realizing that time was incorrect. How was I supposed to know the time was correct? They never told me. So my brother leaves, and not 15, maybe 10 to 15 minutes later, my mother shows back up with my stepdad. And they're like, where's your brother? I'm like, he went to school. They look at me with an unpleasant look on their face. They say, why did you let him leave by himself? I mean, the time was correct. It said for him to go, so he went. I don't fucking care. You not let him leave by himself, my mother said. All I can do is think to myself, how was I supposed to know that clock was wrong? She looks at me and she's like, that clock is wrong. Don't you know that? I'm like, no. My mother looks at me with an angry look on her face and she says this, you better fucking hope nothing bad happened to him or I'm gonna hold you responsible. I'm looking at my mom and I'm like, I'm sorry. She smacks me a couple times. And I'm like thinking, why do you do this? I did not know the time was wrong. I'm a 10-year-old boy. Hard lesson for them too. Never trust a 10-year-old boy to babysit your child. I was still a kid too. Also proved I didn't know how to be an older brother back then. So what happened is my mom's freaking out, crying, and I'm like upset, crying, saying, I'm sorry once again, but it's just not good enough for them. They leave the house. I'm sitting stunned, hoping to God nothing happened to him. Not maybe 10, 15 minutes later, they come back and they looked at me and my mother says, you're lucky. He was in the cafeteria eating breakfast. Don't you ever fucking do that again, you hear me? I'm like, never gonna happen again. Never. That was the first and the last time that ever happened. Lo and behold, she never had me babysit him again. I guess I wasn't trustworthy enough to do it, so I was fine with that anyways. So, let me go ahead and fast forward a little bit because I'm trying to backtrack my memory. So, my brother started getting irritating with me. I was getting irritated with him. You see, at the age he was at the time, he was starting to get pesky and annoying. And me being the older brother should have been the big example, but unfortunately, we're going to have to continue a little more on the whole not knowing how to be an older brother deal. And it got to the point that he and I got into very, very bad brawls. So much so, and please understand I'm not this person anymore, but back then, I had a nasty temper. And in a way, yeah, things happen for a reason, but I wish it wasn't him I learned about my temper. And not only will this affect him, but it was going to affect me as well. So, what happened is I guess he got so annoying and he would not leave me alone. So to get him to leave me alone, I do the worst thing imaginable. I strangle him. Put my hands around his throat and I strangled him. I would think, leave me the fuck alone. And it got to the point where he couldn't breathe. And I did. I strangled him. And he would he would be basically gasping for air when I let him go. I got so angry with him that one night, and I may be ahead of myself on this one, that one night, he got me so angry, I put my hands around his throat, and I strangled him. And he ended up bending his knees. If I had not let go of him within a 30-second time frame, he would have been a goner. As soon as I saw those knees bent, I let him go. He punched me. as always, thinking he'd won the fight, gasping for air and crying how he couldn't breathe. That scared me. I stood there, I didn't even follow him out. In our own bedroom. And the thing is, they left me alone with the kid. To watch the kid. Why are you going to leave a 10-year-old boy the responsibility of babysitting a little boy when you know that 10-year-old's got anger issues? Why are you going to do that? I never understood their logic on that. Why are you going to leave a 10-year-old boy the responsibility of watching baby brother? I used to think that all the time. Why? Early in 97, had a lot of crazy things happen. But that was the craziest. And I think most of that first half I was doing that a lot. This is what happens when God's not in the middle. Your children act up. Your children do things they shouldn't be doing. If you are a parent watching this, make sure your child is old enough to watch their siblings, his or her siblings. Because things happen that are not right. And when God's not in the middle of the family, this is what happens. The children argue, they get physical, they start wanting to fight. This is what I'm saying. But the importance of making sure God is in the middle of your family. You need to make sure of it. I cannot stress that enough. Because if you don't, you're going to face a lot, and I mean a lot of problems. Not only with you, but with your family. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? With your family. So get this through your head. If you are a parent that's not having God in the middle of your family, these are the things that happen. These are the things you don't want. I'm not saying your sibling or the siblings are gonna be at each other's throat and strangle each other. No. But things happen that are not right, that are evil. And you don't want that in your house. God takes it all away. Every single bit of it. Let Him in. And like I said, I'm only saying what I believe in. If you're not the person who doesn't have the same faith as me, then by any means understand I'm not shoving my beliefs on you. But this is what I believe in personally. That God needs to stay in the middle of the family. That's all I'm saying. So, now that we got the pointers out of the way, let's continue on. So now that we've understand my temper and my anger, I think the only time my brother and I actually got along is when my stepbrother was around. My stepbrother was around, we all got along. I guess that's one of the things my stepbrother did to help us out, was make sure that we were getting along. We had a lot of fun with him around, and that's how it was. there was no issues, there was no problems. It was just having family over. But when he wasn't around, yeah, we got into those very brutal brawls with each other. And I would lose my temper, and I would eventually go off on my brother like that. So, I remember, if I can remember early 97 well, I do recall we did have a big Easter get together. Let's get into that. By this time of Easter, we were all painting eggs. We were all, getting ready for the springtime. Big egg hunt. My stepdad was already cooking and butchering a pig to cook pork, smoked pork. Side dishes were being made by my mom and my step-grandmother. We were going to have a big, huge get-together. Activities were going to be made for all of us kids. It was going to be a great time. Friends, family, everyone was coming over. And we had a big yard, so imagine an Easter egg hunt in a huge yard. Yeah. Awesome. So I remember it, and I remember before we had any of the activities happen, we all played outside. And my brother, being the naive little immature brat he was back then, he's not now, but back then, he tried to pull a fast one and get it to where he wants to show one of his friends, our family friend, that I can tell my brother what to do. And he tried to tell me what to do. And he told his friend, see, watch this, I can boss him around. I'd turn around as soon as he asked me to do something, and I'd walk away and I'd ignore him. Not knowing years later that was going to bite me in the rear. I was going to bite me in the butt for that. But I turned around and I embarrassed him in front of his friend. I said, no, little brother, you're not going to boss me around. So, with Easter being like it was, we're all playing outside, and then my mom calls us in and we watch a movie. It was a VHS movie that my brother and I had. I've already seen it. I don't know how many times, but it's a good movie. All of us kids sat down and watched Dennis the Menace. Y'all remember me mentioning about Dennis the Menace in part 3? Yeah, we watched Dennis the Menace. It's nothing new to me, just watching a movie I've already seen. Maybe the kids around us haven't seen it, but good movie. Watched it on VHS. After that, then came the Easter egg hunt. Oh, we hunted for eggs for hours. We had eggs that were cooked, eggs that were plastic, stuff inside eggs. We were hunting them suckers for hours. Had the time of our lives. Big yard, we were just having fun. Then, of course, we had the feast. And I remember my stepdad was cooking that pig for hours. Tasted really good. By this time, we were not really eating somewhat healthy, but the food tasted amazing. I went back for a second helping of beans, and my stepbrother comes up to me and he's like, beans are good for your heart. The more you eat, the more you fry. I'm like, shut up. These are good beans. They're good baked beans. And I was like, huh. But I remember that pig before my stepdad butchered it. It was a nice pig. My mom and my stepdad, they videotaped my stepdad chasing after the pig to kill him. That poor pig ran while my stepdad was running with an axe. My mother's like videotaping it and literally laughing her head off. I only saw the pig when the pig's head was in the cooler. Not something a child should be seeing, but yeah. They chopped that pig's head clean off. Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing. Lucky for me, I didn't see it that much. I was just shocked. I'm like, wow. They tied up its legs and cooked it, and while spinning it around. Like literally. I think they skinned the thing too. Whatever they did, they made a mean homemade pork. And it took hours to cut that meat up. But he cooked it and you can smell the smoke from a mile away. And that was Easter dinner. That was one of the times we actually celebrated Easter, and he made his own grill, not to mention. Like, literally handmade his own grill. With brick and metal. So tell me that's not cool. But, yeah. That was Easter. And Easter was great, and we had the time of our lives. My stepdad watched a couple movies by the time I got there. Watching, well, not that time. Let me kind of stop myself before I go any further, but yeah. But what I didn't know is that maybe this Easter get-together was going to be the last get-togethers we'd have. Because we were going to have a lot more get-togethers after this. And what's to come with my stepdad wasn't going to be good. We were in for a surprise. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't going to be good. Yeah. This was going to be our last get-together. Family, friends, other than what would come later. And this was going to be the last get-together with my stepdad. Healthy, alive. Notice how I say alive. Yeah. Something's going to happen to him. If you already got the hint, you probably know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you. But it's crazy to think how everything good can come to an end. But it was. And it was going to come to an end whether we liked it or not. And we had to face it. We had to face up to what was to come. And we had to own up to it. I can honestly say I enjoyed that Easter. But being a 10-year-old boy, not knowing what's to come, looking back, I should have known better. My family should have known better. We all should have had God in this whole entire situation. And we were living comfortably and in the wrong way. You see, like I told you in the last part, you live comfortably without God, you're going to get a rude awakening. Hard times was coming from my family. And the crazy thing is, things are going to get much worse now. So in these next parts, as I get further into the story, things are going to start gradually getting worse for us. Yeah, we were going to have our fun times still. There was some fun times that were coming up. I'm not going to down that. But as far as a little home get-together thing, this was going to be one of the last ones out of a few of them to come. And the first half of 97 is going to be probably the last of living comfortably. Because when that second half rolls around, we were all in for a rude awakening. And it was coming. And it was coming very fast. I don't mean to repeat myself, but I am to kind of get you in the mindset that things aren't exactly what we think it is. And things aren't exactly what they seem. So, get ready. Because I am. Y'all take care, and God bless you.